Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 204 of Show For You, where today we'll be going over chapter 1188 of One Piece. So this chapter starts off with us seeing as Imu actually throws the first punch here, and ultimately Luffy ends up dodging it because he goes right for his head, so he ends up throwing his head down. But then Imu uses his own ability against him because what Imu did beforehand was he imbued his arm with Omen, and this allowed his arm to then stretch similar to Luffy's like rubber-like abilities, and this then hits Luffy right into the ground. And then we see as we see them as Luffy comes back up and they're looking at each other, but then what ultimately ends up happening is Imu ends up using this chance to get behind Luffy, and then he goes in for a stab with his pole arm, but then Luffy ultimately ends up dodging it, gets behind Imu, kind of like some Dragon Ball level stuff, and we see as he tries to release like a Gum Gum Gatlin here, or whatever the Gear 5 alternative is. For some reason, I can't remember the exact name because we've seen it very few times, surprisingly. But yeah, so no, it's not that. But yeah, so we see this, and then ultimately Imu ends up blocking it all really. And Luffy's like, oh, I thought that was a surefire hit. So then we see as ultimately the battle continues for a little bit, but then Luffy's like, you know what? I remembered from what you did to Loki, so I'm gonna take advantage of this. And he pulls up this new form that we have not seen before, Gum Gum Majin. No, this is not Majin Buu Do Ku. Oh, I think the other one's name was Ozito. No, Ozoto. It is Majin Lu, because it is Luffy in this genie-esque form. Now, I don't know Japanese, but I'd presume that Majin means something around the lines of a genie. But yeah, so we see as Luffy turns into this genie-esque form, just a very large, like, I guess, Aladdin-looking genie. And so we see as he turns into this, and he's like, yeah, I learned from what you did to Loki. I will not let his death go in vain. And then we get the perspective of Loki, because when I read this, I was like, crap, Loki died from that? No, Loki is in fact alive. He's like, yo, I'm alive, idiot. And then Imu's like, not for long. So what he ends up doing is he ends up shooting what appears, I don't know, it was just a plain old Omen. So this Omen was intended to kill Loki. And we see his little Ragnar prepares and like puts his arms up in front of Loki, like he's Piccolo defending Gohan or something like that, and Loki's like, no, Ragnar, get out of the way, I'll take it. But then we see as Jinbei of all people, blocks a Omen with intent to kill with an Arabast tile punch or whatever it's called, or tile fist. But yeah, so I think it's tile punch actually. We see as Jinbei, like, Imu's power is so hard to read because this shot was definitely intended to kill. Like, I believe there's no doubt that it was intended to kill. But, like, we see as Jinbei blocks it. So Jinbei's at least super powerful. Somehow he's showing his stuff here, or that attack really wasn't as powerful as it may have seemed. Well, yeah, we see that, in fact, Jinbei blocks this, and then he talks to Luffy. He's like, yo, Luffy, give me the word, and I will defend this man. And ultimately, Luffy's like, yeah, defend him, he's my buddy. And Loki's like, quit, I ain't your buddy, right? And we then see as the ice that is encapsulating Gunko or Shuri, I'm going to call it Gunko. What we see as the ice encapsulating Gunko is, in fact, not fully melted. And it's taking quite a while, and they're discussing the Straw Hats. They're like, yo, how are we going to get this ice melted quickly? And they mention about how Robin and Luffy got temporarily frozen by Aokiji previously. And so they ultimately just decide to continue to like sit there and all that. We see as Ragnar's happy that Loki didn't end up dying. He's got like bright shimmering eyes. Well, not Loki, but Ragnar. And so then we see as Imu actually notices Brook. Now we see as also the Straw Hats kind of contemplate on who Imu is. They're like, what is Imu? Because they believe that he is higher than the Holy Knights, but they also believe that there's no one higher than the Five Elders. So they're like, you know what? He must be the captain of the Holy Knights then, even though the captain of the Holy Knights isn't even here at the moment. But yeah, so they presume that Imu is the captain of the Holy Knights, so Garling level, Shamrock level, like entity. However, he most certainly is not. But one thing we then see as we focus back onto the fight between Imu and Luffy, we see as Imu ultimately ends up noticing Brook, and he's like, a man with an afro who refers to Gunko as Shuri? That can't be, because it's been so long. However, it is. We see here that Imu, in fact, identifies Brook. He remembers Brook because of when he Yomi reversied Shuri and all that. So he knows who Brook is, and he's like, whoa, what's he doing here? I guess he's more so concerned that a character or an individual from the Kingdom of Vesperia has lived this long and has the knowledge. Therefore, Brook needs to be eradicated because he could spread the word of what happened there if he is not, which he already has spread the word. But yeah. So we then see as the fight continues between Majin Luffy, or the Gum Gum Majin, and Emu. So we then see as Luffy pulls out this new move called Sucker Punching Bullet, which ultimately ends up failing with a clash of what appears to be advanced armament haki because of the lightning. And ultimately, Emu ends up beating that away. And then he pulls out his Stigma ability with a little bell, targets onto Luffy, and then shoots the ray at him like he did with Loki, essentially. Well, not essentially, but putting Loki out for the count for the time being. And with this, we see as Luffy ends up going back into his regular form to avoid the Stigma, because I mean, if he wouldn't have, he would have got blasted through since how massive he was. And then Emu even commented on that. He's like, you said you learned from Loki, yet you still made the mistake of going as big as Loki was, which is really stupid. I don't know how Luffy learned from Loki really, if he just went to the exact same size, because Loki's size and I guess inability to move like as quickly as a smaller individual can is what kind of led to him getting shot by the Stigma in the previous chapter. But yeah, so we see as he sends this at Luffy, and Luffy ends up going away and dodging. And then we see as Emu starts to throw Omen at Luffy. So we see Luffy's kind of skittering around, dodging. He hits it with a Gatling, but then Emu just sends more after him. He's Omen spamming this chapter, but ultimately Luffy then starts to run away. He starts to skedaddle away from the Omen and all of that, trying to just get away from it because he is aware that it's going to blow up. And so during this time, we see as Emu decides to land down in the forest, where ultimately he ends up taking his pole arm, spinning it near his Omen wreath, or whatever it's called, and he then imbues his pole arm with Omen and pulls out a sword. This is called the Sword of the Wailing Void, or this is what it was translated as. Sick name for a sword, by the way. But yeah, so we see as he pulls out this Sword of the Wailing Void, and it just absorbs all of the life force in the trees around it. It becomes a dark husk of what it previously was, previously a green and verdant forest. It absorbs all the life. And we see as Luffy comments on this, and he's like, yo, what's happening to all the trees? It's sucking out all the life. And then Emu's like, oh yes, it's finally clear now. And then we see as he directs his Omen to bring Luffy towards him, and then Emu sticks up his blade, pierces Luffy through the chest. Luffy is hanging on this blade like he was on Crocodile's hook, except this looks far worse, considering that this is a Gear 5 Luffy. This is maximum power Gear 5. We know this. Luffy said to himself, yo, I feel the greatest I've ever felt, and he is fully energized. He's eaten so much food, and he's healed, he's not harmed in any way, he's not injured, and he's coming in fully powered Gear 5, and he gets skewered. We see Luffy just punched through with this blade, with the blade of the Wailing Void. And this is where the chapter ends. Now, one thing I'll kind of discuss that a little bit more later on, but one thing I've heard discussed at the beginning is I guess we get to see how Emu and Joy Boy met, because we get some dadgum prank call hitting with the Joy Boy was like, who's this? Even though he's the one who called Emu. And it's legit a call. It's a transponder no call. Denden Mushi, whatever you call it. Because we see the buzz and all of that. And he's like, who's this? Emu's like, it's me, it's Mu, Emu. And Emu goes, who's this? And Joy Boy goes, it's Joy Boy. And that's all I got to see. I'm surprised I didn't hear when the dadgum is your refrigerator running joke, because they just I don't know why that was in there. It was such an unserious tone for a very crazy chapter. But yeah, so I'm just gonna discuss my ideas on this chapter. So we see Luffy get stabbed through with a life energy absorbing blade at maximum Gear 5. So I was downplaying Emu for the time, but holy smokes, Luffy's got a lot of way to grow if he's gonna beat Emu, because this is something else. Emu has not struggled with this fight at all, and he was struggling a lot more with a not fully powered Loki. So this shows, okay, you gotta get the power scaling here. So obviously not Loki, but Emu having a sword, Mihawk upscale, but it genuinely is a Mihawk upscale here. Well, not necessarily, but Emu fighting, not him having a sword, obviously, that's just a joke, but him dealing with Luffy in the way he has. So now, based off this, Loki was going pretty toe-to-toe with Emu. So we can presume that they are around equal power, or at least Emu is probably a little bit more powerful than Loki. And so with this, we know that if Shanks won against Loki in a fair fight, that Shanks is more powerful than Loki. And then this is actually a Mihawk upscale, because Mihawk, from what we know, is more powerful than Shanks. So how powerful is Mihawk? Like, if Mihawk is literally pushing Emu level, then how the heck is Zoro going to beat him before the end of the series? Like, I'm failing to connect the dots here because I don't really see how we're going to go about doing this. But yeah, so it has me concerned because it would be crazy to, like, let's try to kill Luffy here, but I know that I think he won't ever do that. It's One Piece. No one really ever dies besides, like, Odin. But, yeah, or Cobra too. But yeah, so like he's not gonna die, but I'm really wondering how he's gonna pull this one out because like he's got skewered. We've had Luffy die before, like with Gear 5th, well, die because his heart briefly stopped. He didn't get like brain dead or anything like that when he first activated Gear 5. And we've seen him get skewered through before with Crocodile, like I said. But this looks bad. We see as a Gear 5, maximum power Gear 5 Luffy is skewered on the end of Emu's blade. And we actually see as well as Emu literally hits him with the line, "You're not him, buddy." Because he's like, yeah, you're most certainly not Joy Boy because Joy Boy would have never been this weak. How powerful was Joy Boy? We've seen Gear 5 Luffy, yes, with a lot of assistance, beat Kaido. How powerful was original Joy Boy? How powerful was Emu in his prime? Like, oh my gosh, I'm ready to see all this stuff, hopefully. Because Joy Boy must have been insane if Gear 5, maximum power Gear 5, Luffy is weak. If maximum power Gear 5 Luffy is not him, what Emu said, you're not him, buddy, then how powerful was Joy Boy? How powerful, like I said, was Emu in his prime? Like, I have no clue what to think here. And like also, just like some other stuff throughout this chapter, I really enjoyed seeing little Ragnar being so connected to Luffy that he was just willing to sacrifice himself up there. That was very cute, and especially the little face that Ragnar made afterwards. And seeing Jinbei pull out this block of a like presumably a full power Emu attack, that's pretty cool. Like that's super cool. And then obviously with like how Emu is going to deal with Brook because like he knows Brook. He knows that Brook is a threat to his reign. So like what's gonna happen here? Now, one of the big things I think can happen is within the next chapters we see as Emu runs out of time because Emu has been here for a pretty like he's been here for a pretty penny of like time now. He's been here for quite a hot minute. And so I believe the only way we can really avoid complete defeat on Elbaf is if Emu times out, which is going to suck because we've seen a lot of cop-outs of people timing out with like Gear 5 and stuff like that. But I honestly, I want to see what Emu's going to do here. We have a 1 week break until the next chapter, until we see chapter, well, not 1 week, but our, obviously, break week and then another chapter, so technically 2 week break until the next chapter. But I'm really ready to see how Emu's going to do this. I would like to see Emu kind of lay some belt to butt and just kind of take name here because I know it's too late in the story now to do another Saba Odi, but like this would be a great point to do another Saba Odi because Luffy obviously he's not powerful enough. He's not going to cut it. He can't become the Power King, not the Power King, but the Pirate King at his current level. It's troublesome, worrying because we have seen that now Luffy. It's not looking like he become the Pirate King. I keep saying the Power King, the Pirate King with the power he has at the moment. Because if he can't challenge Emu at least, because he didn't do anything really to Emu. I don't even think he landed a hit. No, he didn't. So like I'm really concerned. We got to see either a training arc. We got to see Luffy acquire something because how it's going right now, he cannot cut it as the Pirate King. It's as simple as that. But yeah, that's all it really was for chapter 1188 of One Piece, and that's all I really have for episode 204 of Shelf Review. So, thank you very much for watching.